What better place for Halloween? We are tonight in New Hampshire's Haunted Castle here in North Conway. The only simulated haunted hotel suite in the universe. Did I say universe? I did. This is one of the adventure suites. You can stay here like any other hotel. Well, actually, unlike any other hotel. And every suite here has a different theme. A dragon's lair, an ancient Roman villa, a cave, a hunting lodge. This is the tumble-down haunted castle, filled with ghosts, spooky, as you will see. New Hampshire's Route 25 goes from Plymouth to Haverhill. For many years, the road went through the village of Wentworth, and there was a covered bridge there, later an iron bridge. But after Route 25 was rerouted to bypass the town, the old bridge fell into disrepair. It was closed even to foot traffic. When the Wayfarer Hotel in Bedford was torn down, the pedestrian-covered bridge that was the centerpiece of the hotel was sold to Wentworth. And someday they're going to replace the old span with it. But back when the bridge was there, I met a man one night. An odd duck, to say the least. Anyhow, there I was in the town of Wentworth, New Hampshire, all alone, after midnight. I was on the bridge. I was, in fact, walking backward in the moonlight when I bumped into him. He had also been walking backwards as well. He was looking at the river. Anyhow, two souls in the night, walking backward, collided. "Thee, watch thyself," the guy said. "What?" I said. Thee? Thyself? "Aye, thee, you clumsy fool." Well, I turned and I was face to face with, well, I don't know what I was face to face with. I just knew he was very strange. I thought, this has got to be the ultimate hippie. Look at his clothing. The guy had on knickers like I'd worn in second grade, pants that came to the knee, made of leather. He wore gray stockings and shoes with buckles, and he was wearing this wide brim felt hat, and I thought to myself, I'll bet he's a big hit back at the commune. You gotta be a Grateful Dead fan, I said. Grateful, he said. Dead, he said. And then, I swear, his eyes went into his skull, and there were only sockets, and steam came out of a hole where his mouth had just been seconds before. "Arr!" he said, and boy, did I jump back. "How the heck did you do that?" I mean, I really wanted to know. That was as scary as anything I have ever seen. "Arr, arr," he said a second time. "Wow," I said. "You are not afraid?" "Well, that's like CGI in person," I said. "Just the best." "Oh," he said in a tone so mournful it brought tears to my eyes. The guy was the best actor ever. "Who are you?" I am the Reverend Andrew Harpending," he said. "I was the first to be the minister to this town." And then he became quite quiet. "But I sinned," he said. "I used the Lord's name in vain. I caroused, I lied, I preached while drunk, I seduced my parishioners, I stole money from the parish, I deserted my dear wife, ran off with our housemaid, and I am spending eternity here across the river from the town, ever looking, never able to cross the river. My face a lesson to those who would break his commandments." Well, I had to agree with him on that. "Satan is in my face," he said. "But I have not Satan's power. I have no power at all. Even you are not afraid." And I looked at him for a minute. "Yeah, right," I said. "You are dead, and I am the Queen of Sheba. What a crock. You better get back to your commune and listen to the Grateful Dead." "Grateful Dead," he said, and he disappeared into the woods. In Thornton Wilder's great American play, Our Town, there is a scene in a graveyard where actors stand at their graves acting as their own tombstones. But did you know that a lot of historical societies are presenting just such programs? It was the smell I noticed first. It was the smell of a greenhouse in winter, earthy and moist. And then I saw her over there standing beside a tombstone. It was Saturday at dusk. There had been a shower, and now there was a fog. All I could see was that it was a woman dressed in a long, dark skirt with a gray coat. I couldn't tell her age, but I was delighted. I was coming through a cemetery, and there was a ghost. What fun! "Are you alone?" she asked. Her voice was clear, although it was a distance away. There was no other sound, no wind, no cars on the road. "I am alone," I said. "I was told there would be others," she said. Her voice was old. She, however, held herself erect. "Oh," I said, "that was last Sunday. You missed it by a week." The woman then lifted her head, and I saw her face, and I won't lie, I was shocked. This was no Halloween ghost. It was the face of deep sadness. A light wind came up. Leaves began falling. "Last week," she cried. "I shan't see him," she said. "I shan't see him." And the voice gave me the willies. "Who are you?" I asked. But she was not listening. "I'll not see him. No, no." I won't lie, I wanted to comfort her, and I took a step toward her. But she was so hideous I couldn't bring myself to touch her. We were now right beside each other, and she turned her head up to me, and her face just inches from mine. "You see," she said, and I saw, not a vision, mind you, but a revelation. Now, the woman did not look like my mother, but I had this feeling she'd become the woman I loved the most in all the world. Mother, now a rotting corpse, horror and love. I put my hand out to her. "You're not Jamie," she said, and with that sentence I knew who she was. "Sarah," I said. "Yes, Sarah." See, last Sunday, the town held its annual cemetery walk, sponsored by the Historical Society. In those walks, townsfolk stand at particular gravestones, dressed as the person buried there. They are reenactors, and they tell the story of the person they are playing. And last week, one of the graves was that of Sergeant James Watson. Jamie Watson died at Fredericksburg, Civil War. The ghost was obviously his mother, Sarah Watson. Sarah herself had died of tuberculosis 3 weeks after her son was killed. She died, in fact, the day before the body of her son arrived home on the train. She had tried to hang on to life long enough to see the body of her son, but it was not to be. "I saw Jamie last Sunday," I said. "How did he look?" There were tears in her eyes. "Young. He died a boy. He hasn't changed." He spoke of how he loved his mother. "But I'll not see him," she said. "I'll not see him." And she walked into the woods, and I went on my way. The next morning, I stopped at the general store for my cup of coffee, and as I took my first sip, the ghost from the cemetery came in the door. Our eyes locked. "Sarah," I said. "Fritz," she said. "Fritz, thank you for what you did last evening. I really did think the cemetery walk was this weekend. I had a whole program planned." "Well, you had me wondering if I really was meeting Sarah," I said. "Well, I was there to practice and get a feeling for it all. And you knew it was me right off," I said. "I swear I did not know it was you." "Well, I did a lot with makeup. You were very good." I was channeling that woman. "Oh, yes, you were." "What are you going to do now that you know the program's not today?" "Oh, Tom and I are going to drive back to New Haven, take the scenic route. You know, I married Tom Blanding." "I heard. Lovely to see you after all these years, Millie," I said. "Call me Sarah," she said. "Sarah," I said. I have seen people startled or scared before, but I never saw anybody as terrified as Vernon McRae was that night. "60 years ago, when I was 22 years old, I saw a person suffer stark terror from an unseen hand. So dramatic, I never forgot it. This Halloween, I thought you might like to hear about it." This is a true story. I mean, this really and truly happened to me. In 1959, I was in the United States Army, and I was traveling with an Army variety show called the 2nd United States Army Showmobile. Show played all the forts and bases in the 2nd Army area. We traveled by bus, and one night in October, we were going through the mountains of West Virginia, headed for Ohio. It was around Halloween, and the guys on the bus were telling ghost stories, and one of the guys was the son of a mortician, and he told us all how a body is prepared for a funeral. Scared the heck out of us. There were stories about people who were decapitated and people who were impaled. Anyhow, we're driving all night in order to get a day off the next day before our next venue. By midnight, about everybody was asleep in their seats in the bus, and one of the GIs, PFC Vernon McRae, he was still awake, and he was reading I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. That's one of the scariest zombie stories ever. Well, while he was reading, somebody put their finger in his ear. "Cut it out," he said, swatted behind his head. And then he got a tap on the back of his neck. "I said, cut it out," he said. And again he tried to hit the guy behind him while still reading his book. And then he was grabbed by the neck behind him, made him turn around. He was going to punch somebody right in the nose. He was that angry, and he couldn't get his head out like that, and he finally wrestled his head, and he turned around, and there was nobody there to punch. The seat behind him was empty. Well, he actually screamed. Woke up everybody on the bus. I remember him out in the aisle looking at the seat behind him, screaming, "Ah!" like that. Also, the seat across the aisle was empty, and the seat next up was empty. And I have seen people startled or scared before, but I never saw anybody as terrified as Vernon McRae was that night. Well, everybody wanted to know what happened. Someone had grabbed him, actually hurt him a bit. And when he went to defend himself, this thing had vanished. "Oh, you fell asleep," Sergeant Young said. "There's no one in the seat behind you. There's no place whatever it was could have gone to." No, I was not asleep. It was real. It was not a dream." Well, if he'd been on the witness stand, you would have believed him. Everybody on the bus was just stunned. This was not a joke. Either PFC McRae was hallucinating or he was asleep. Maybe he'd reached his tipping point and he was mad. People at first laughed, but they weren't laughing anymore. Some of them on the bus were weighing whether or not a spirit or a ghost actually did do this. And then we heard, all of us, giggling. And we knew whose giggling it was. It was the giggling of PFC Vinnie Rogers, the most creative guy in the bunch. Also, a jokester of the first class of fiendishness. And PFC Vinnie Rogers was not in the aisle of the bus. Where he was, well, he was actually in the luggage rack above the seats. See, what he had done was climb into the rack way back to the back of the bus, and he'd squirmed his way down until he was over and just behind PFC McRae. There were coats and small bags in the rack, and Vinnie had kept them between himself and the aisle, so he was hidden. Nobody saw him. And so then he reached down between the bars of the rack, and he grabbed PFC McRae by the back of the neck hard. And when McRae turned around, he pulled his arm back up, and there was nobody there. Best Halloween prank I ever saw. "65 years ago, when I first got an operator's license, I drove my mother for an appointment at the doctor, and we parked and agreed to meet back at the car. I sat in that car for an hour waiting for her and finally went looking, and she was in somebody else's car, just a couple spaces up. She was very angry with me because I was late. Similar thing happened to my friend Binky Shears. Who are you? I'm Enoch. Enoch? My friend Binky Shears was getting into his 1996 Toyota Tacoma pickup. He never saw Enoch sitting there in the dark in the passenger seat. Binky hadn't been paying attention, but he sure was now. The truck had been locked. Binky had to use his key to get in, and Enoch was there, wearing, ready for this, a woman's red dress and hoop earrings. He had a scraggly white beard and an old man's hat and smelled of cheap shaving lotion. He looked homeless. He looked dangerous. You got a weapon? A weapon? A knife or a gun? Enoch shook his head. No. Of course, you were at the party tonight. What party? Well, not incidentally, Binky and Enoch were in the parking lot of the Sawyer Rod and Gun Club. Binky's truck was the last vehicle there. The annual club Halloween party had gotten over an hour before. Binky was there without Fern. She'd stayed at home. Fern didn't like Halloween, but Binky was on the entertainment committee at the club. He had to be there to make sure the band got played, that sort of stuff. Now it was way past midnight. Binky was headed home. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to get out of my truck, Binky says. I ain't moving, Enoch says. Binky took his cell phone out. Then I'm calling the police, he says. Go ahead, Enoch says. When they get here, they won't see me. I'm a ghost, you know. What? I'm a ghost. No, you're not. I am. And what's more, I am also a shapeshifter. I can turn myself into anything I please. Well, I don't think so. Just you watch, Enoch said. And here he took hold of his straggly old beard and he yanked. And it came away from his chin and his cheeks, and he had shape-shifted. He was somebody else, and it was Fern. Binky's Fern, with a beard and an old hat. Fern smiled. Binky noted she'd also blacked out a front tooth. Even with the blacked out tooth, she looked so beautiful to him right then that he almost swooned. I was home, she said, and feeling sad for myself because you were down here. I was all alone. Of course, it's my own fault, you know. But I hate drunks, especially drunks in costume. Anyhow, I went up the attic, got the makeup kit I used with the Sawyer Players, and there was spirit gum and crepe hair and all kinds of makeup, and I did this. And then I walked down here with the second set of keys to the truck. Been here only about 10 minutes. A lot of drivers came by while I was walking down. Everybody beeped, nobody stopped. Binky was thinking, what other woman in the world could bring me such joy? He was also thinking, she better take a good shower before she comes to bed tonight. So did we scare you this time? I do hope so. Tonight we had tales of necrophilia, shape-shifting, souls in purgatory, and corpses in the back shed. What fun. Did you sit through the entire thing, or were you a Halloweenie? Yes, I know, you were brave. Well, pleasant dreams.